Good morning, folks. The real Captain Kirk here, live from Weather Trends 360 studio here in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It is Monday morning, the 21st of October. Remember all that snow that fell in the upper plains here just a week or so ago? Well, it's gone. This is still the season-to-date snowfall map, so this is everything that's fallen. The two big storms that hit the Rockies and the plains actually add a little tiny bit here in the Appalachians and the higher elevations of New England. So again, this snowfall index is still the snowiest start in 10 years nationally, going back to 2009. But as we'll see here in this next graphic, again, most of that snow is gone. So again, the season, right as of right now today, 7.2% of the country still has snow on the ground. Most of that's obviously out in the higher elevation of the Rockies, but again, amazing that 2 feet of snow in North Dakota is gone. So again, it didn't take long for the October sun to do its number on it. Average this time of year is about 2.5% of the country with snow on the ground, so we're still above average and the most snow cover as of today since 2006. But again, some of that's melting. Looking at this week, last week actually, 13 through 19 October for some of our retail supply side clients versus last year. So these are year-on-year temperature changes across the world for last week, retail week ending Saturday. While the U.S. was 2.3 degrees warmer than last year, it was still below average nationally. But again, we'll show how the year-on-year trends are the things that influence the seasonal sale purchases. Europe was similar to last year, way above average. China was 1.2 degrees warmer than last year, but below average for China as a whole. I'd like to quantify this. This is our power of 1 degree. Last week we picked on coats. This week we'll pick on heaters, which are very volatile. Every degree colder, about a 10% increase in heater sales. If it's 10 degrees colder year on year, there's about a 100% increase in heater sales. So we thought we'd key in on this period here where the last week or two here actually has been warmer year on year. So even though we've had some cold and snow, it's just been much warmer than a year ago. So again, averaging about 2.8 degrees warmer times 10%, 28% decrease in sales up until about this coming up Friday. And then we see a better trend here. So starting this week Saturday through about the 7th of November, looking at 2, 3, 4, 5, even 7 degrees colder year on year nationally. So if it's on average 5.3 degrees colder times 10%, 53% increase in heater sales. So a real strong surge here for that category. Unfortunately, it's short-lived, and then we think if we get into the mid-November time frame, again, much, much warmer year on year. Not to say we won't have cold periods, but again, just not as cold as last year. So about a 55% decrease in year-on-year sales for heaters. So again, a good opportunity coming up. So hopefully folks capitalize on that. Looking at this week, the last full week of October, 1.8 degrees warmer than last year, 11th coldest in 30 years, so kind of near average on a national scale. Map right shows the temperatures on the East Coast are above average, but looking at the map inset left there is way above last year's level. So again, the only spot that's actually trending below normal and colder than last year is the Rocky Mountains, so that's a good spot for some of those heater sales. Looking a little wetter than last year, 6th wettest in 30 years, above average rainfall nationally. Snowfall's more than last year, but still way below average, 72% below average on a national scale. So not looking anything too huge here this week. Jumping ahead to next week, getting us into parts of November here. Here is that good surge we talked about for the heater sales. So this is 5.2 degrees colder than last year and 4th coldest in 30 years. So this is a good surge here. Much of the country trending colder than average and colder than last year, except maybe Florida. Less than last year in terms of rainfall, 7th wettest in 30 years, above average rainfall. Snowfall is probably going to be more than last year, but we don't think we're going to connect the two, the snow, the cold, and the precip here. So below average snowfall is kind of the expectation right now, even though it's a pretty chilly week next week. NOAA actually just came out with their winter outlook. They actually have a kind of theme of warm and wet. We don't entirely disagree on the mild side, but I think the wets may be overdone here. Just to clarify, that EC, equal chances in the plains Midwest, does not mean they think it's normal. They actually just think they don't know. It won't be warmer than normal. It won't be below normal. They just don't really know. So, but that's the area where you'd probably have a greater chance of below normal temperatures, as we believe, and we'll talk about that here. One thing we like to look at is year-on-year trends, and so if we look at the ocean temperatures, these are ocean temperatures versus the same time last year, and what we see is that blob in Alaska, off of Alaska there, is much, much colder than last year. So this suggests that we're not going to have the big high pressure there that maybe some think, even though these are slightly above average water temperatures, nowhere near as warm as last year. So typically what you see in the oceans is that over colder waters, again, this is year-on-year trends, more incidents of low pressure, and over warmer waters, more incidents of high pressure. So what's interesting is we think that there will be a Greenland block that can get some folks excited in the Northeast for cold and snow. Unfortunately, we think the high in the middle of the country is going to keep most of that cold more toward the plains and Midwest. So kind of where NOAA has their equal chances is where we do believe it will be pretty cold. It was extremely cold there last year. Probably cool to cold again this year, just not as cold as last year. And that would make a snow storm track more for the Ohio Valley Midwest as opposed to the East Coast. Cold waters off the East Coast are colder than last year. Again, doesn't mean that it's necessarily below normal. They're just much colder than last year this time. So we'd suggest that would take the storm tracks more out to sea. So again, we're looking for a brief, intense winter, if you will, mid-December through probably early February. But the book ends November to March, probably nowhere near as extreme in terms of snowfall. So that's why we kind of have the winter overall, coldest in 5 years, meaning December through February for winter. But snowfall season, November to March, actually the least in 4 years nationally. So again, just some of the factors that we would factor in as if you look back at some of our YouTube videos, you'll see some of our winter outlook. We had an extremely busy week here this last week. I got to speak to a few hundred charter school kids down in Philadelphia, a great group of folks. They had their SATs that day, and were actually amazed at how well we kept them entertained. So it was a good group of folks, great people. Then we had the little ones' first school field trip, which was fun. Now, of course, we'd go to the pumpkin patch with Mrs. Kirk here, and then they always say it's a hay ride. We all know it's really a straw ride, right? Hay is for horses, straw is for cows, as they say. But sat on some straw bales of hay, as I just said, straw. So I had a great time with the little ones, schoolmates, and she knew all the kids' names by name. Then we had a great Friday night. A group of us went down to the Casting Crowns. If you haven't heard this band, awesome group of people, and just great songs and just positive and uplifting, to say the least, Friday night. Then we have a beautiful 61 degrees Saturday. You take the little one to putt-putt golf, and she had a great time here, just enamored with her first experience of putt-putt golf. So that was a fun day. And then, of course, when it pouring down rain on Sunday, you head to the Crayola factory indoors and do some drawing. So had a great weekend. Hope you did as well, and we will be back here this time next week.